Welcome to wasmCloud Wednesday for February the 16th, 2022. As usual, we like to start with the demo, and I think today Brooks is going to be kicking us off. Brooks?
Yeah, so I'm not gonna say it. I had some buffer time built in, a little spiel, so it's cool. I'll just do that, and then pretend nothing happened. So today, what I wanted to show off is something that we part of what we showed at our .50 launch demonstration, our pet clinic microservices demo, but kind of with a twist. I wanted to show it in distributed running on the edge. So what I have is a wasmCloud host running on my laptop, which I'm calling on-prem. Here, I'll go ahead and start sharing so that you all can get a look at this. I've got a host running on my laptop, which I've got a couple labels here, but things like, which I guess, first of all, before I get started, is sharing my whole monitor, is that a fine screen size? Are you all able to see it fine? Cool. Let me know if you want me to zoom in or anything. So I have a host running on my laptop, which you can see by this label, M1 Mac. I have the Pet Clinic app label on it. And for location, I'm calling this like on-prem, like this is a server that we're running on location. Now I have this connected to two other hosts with NATs, which you can kind of see the log streams for in the terminal on the side. But I have this one, which is a Google Coral, which I have right here running wasmCloud on it. And I have its location set as the edge. And the other one is a Raspberry Pi, which I have right here, which its location is also set as the edge. You know, these are just arbitrary host labels, but you'll see why that is important in a little bit. So what I wanted to start with, which everything is just running on-prem right now on my machine, is our pet clinic application. And if you haven't gotten a chance to look at this, it's based off of a popular microservices demonstration. It was a Java Spring Boot example, and we kind of link to that in our documentation if you wanted to take a look at the Spring Boot example. But if you haven't seen this before, here is like a general architecture diagram of what this microservices app looks like. Right, so you just want to make sure that was good. The entry point is our clinic API. This is like our API gateway. So you make an HTTP request to the pet clinic API. That actor or microservice forwards requests over to the applicable other microservices, like whether it's meant to be handled or meant to handle customer requests or querying visits or adding visits or vets or things like that. So we've kind of separated this out into a couple different distinct components. And this is the wasmCloud version of it. So on the left in blue are our actors, and on the right are our capability providers. And then this green is just to show that we're connecting to like an external service. So we have our SQL database provider, but we're connecting to Postgres as our database. So that's what you can kind of see reflected here in the washboard. We have HTTP server and our Postgres SQLDB provider, and then our four actors or microservices in this example. And they're all linked together. And if we go one tab over, I actually have the pet clinic application pulled up. So we can see a couple of different vets and pet types that we can handle. I added myself as an owner, and I can do things like add my dog Doug in here, just putting in a couple things like that he's a dog. This is a real working like microservices example that's powering a web application. So what I want to do now is show you what this looks like on the edge. So we have everything on-prem. We want to move to keeping maybe our core services like HTTP server and our Postgres on-prem or in the cloud, but we want to move the computing power out to the edge. So what we can do here, I'll go to another tab, and I have Wash connected to this NATS instance. And the way that I do that is with a Wash context, which I kind of demoed a few months ago now. It's been a little bit. But basically, I have this host config that's configured to connect to NATS. But what we can do is we can make use of the wash control interface and how you can smartly schedule workloads on different machines. And we can do things like wash control start actor. We can start a couple of different, we can start more instances of our Clinic API with a constraint that we want this actor to run on the edge. And then we can start maybe 3 instances of this actor. Now, when you do this, Wash is going to automatically auction for a host that's running on the edge. So either my Coral or my Raspberry Pi can respond to this, and we'll start 3 actors on that host. So when we run that, we won't see anything right away because I'm focused on this specific host. But if we go to poke around at our different hosts here, we can see that we have 3 instances of the Clinic API running on the Raspberry Pi now. We can do the same thing for Vets, which is another microservice that contributes to this example. We can add in additional constraints. So if we add a constraint for device equals, I think Coral is the one for the Google, the Edge TPU. Yeah, we can say that we specifically want to run this on the Coral and on the Edge. And then this specific host is going to respond to that and start scheduling more instances of Vets. We can start visits. And then I think the last one is customers. We go to show all. We should see 3 more show up under visits. We can say specifically to run this on Raspberry Pi. So Vets, visits, customers. So pretty much all I'm doing here manually, this is something that like an application like WADM, the application deployment manager, would take care of you, like scheduling these on specific hosts. I'm just showing that you can manually push workloads onto hosts that you want. So now we have a few different instances of each individual microservice. So I guess if you count them all up, we have, how many actors do we have? 6, 9, 4. That's mad. We have 19 different actors running across all of our different things. Now, if we go back to our pet clinic application and we click around, it looks the same, right? But why is that special? If this looks the same when we've started up additional instances of these actors, you're actually seeing the exact same application. It's just automatically load balancing those requests to our different devices. And you can see that in action if we go back to our terminal here. I have I think this is the Coral set up with debug logging on, which is a little more verbose, but you can actually see when invocations come across and hit the Coral. You'll see invocation succeeded here in the logs for when a invocation succeeds in the lattice in general, not necessarily on this device. But if you click around a little bit, you can see that we receive an invocation here for the wasmCloud or for the Vets actor. And this host, or the actor running on this host, is actually getting that request. So if we keep poking around, sometimes we'll see an invocation actually get handled by the Coral. Sometimes we see invocation succeeded. Anyways, it's just a way to show that these requests are being live load balanced across all instances of these actors without any additional configuration. I'm just using wasmCloud, starting additional actors. That's great. Now, another application of this live load balancing, or these things that we get with NATS and wasmCloud, is we can actually go back to our on-prem device, take all the workload off of it. So we can get rid of all of the instances of, which was just one, of our actors or our microservices. And so now all of the actors are running on the edge. And by the edge, I mean on one of these 2 little devices right here, right? Now, if we go back to our pet clinic application, we can click into owners, take a look at vets, all the same things that we were doing before, but now all the workload has been spread onto our little edge devices. Nothing's on, none of the actors, the business logic are on-prem anymore. It's all automatically sending invocations requests to these little edge devices. Now, what makes this really powerful, we touched a little bit on this in our .50 demonstration. If we go back a little bit and we look at like what the Spring Boot Pet Clinic looks like, this is the equivalent architecture diagram. It has all kind of config servers and service discovery and load balancing on HTTP requests. All of that is kind of built into the application. But with wasmCloud, these things in the red boxes here are essentially what you're getting for free, like what you're getting out of a better developer experience with this automatic failover, automatic load balancing, and even cooler, we're running this on little 1 gigabyte single chip computers. So the Raspberry Pi, the Edge TPU, you can run all of these workloads there and not have to run everything in the cloud, and it automatically load balance. I feel like I'm gonna overuse those words, automatic load balancing and failover. But what I really wanted to show is this true, this demonstration that we have that's a real microservices application running on these little computers, because I know that this is going to have some good implications for our machine learning effort that we've got going on right now, running things on the TPU. And in general, there really wasn't too much setup that went into this. I took the host release from the ARM Docker image and put it on the Coral and the Raspberry Pi, and they're all configured to, once you configure it to talk to the same NATS instance, they all talk to each other, no problem. So as a supplement to this demo, I'll probably publish a couple of different commands for just getting this to all connect together if anybody else wants to try this too. So I saw a couple things in chat. I just stopped sharing so that it wouldn't all show up. But does anybody have any questions or want me to dive into anything else on this demo?
So I have a question. So the web page that you were showing, that was representing the actor, right? Not the provider. Right?
The web page that I was showing was we actually have like a React app that's showing the actual like assets, but when you hit the web page, it makes API requests to the HTTP server provider, which forwards that to the Clinic API actor.
The Clinic API actor. So the actor is the one that's servicing the APIs.
Correct. Yeah. You can think of the Clinic API. You can think of the Clinic API actor almost like an API gateway. So it takes HTTP requests, and then, if we're trying to list the vets that we have in our database, it'll send that request to the vets microservice, I don't know if I said vets or visits.
Brooks, would you mind sharing the sort of high-level architectural diagram, and then maybe doing like a little bouncing icon over it? Kevin, just basically what Kevin dropped into chat. If you wouldn't mind, just sort of visually explaining the flow of the HTTP request from your browser and how it sort of navigates through the system here.
Yeah. So essentially the arrows are in the correct direction here. What happens is you have the application on the front end that makes a request of the API. And what actually receives that request is the HTTP server provider here. That's the thing that's running on my machine and actually able to get network requests. It forwards that request to the Clinic API actor, which has the wasmCloud HTTP server capability. So we know that it's allowed to get HTTP requests. And then from there, we send off the request to the applicable, I keep calling them microservices, but the actor that's designed to do that type of query.
Okay, so the data, okay, so that's why I was getting turned around. So the data is actually in the construct of the provider, is so that you're just basically using the actor as basically an API router.
Pretty much, yep.
Oh, okay, all right. I missed that part, sorry.
And the reason, we would have something like the Clinic API actor directly listen to HTTP requests. With wasmCloud, we would want that all to be federated so that random actors or potentially untrusted actors couldn't just receive and make HTTP requests. But as of right now, WebAssembly modules can't make HTTP requests or listen for HTTP requests, open up sockets. So the provider is just a way to listen to and give that to the API. Cool. Yeah, that's a great question.
Nikki, is that clear now where all the components were? And then what you saw in the demo was everything, the 4 boxes in blue started running on Brooks's Mac. Then he replicated them to the Raspberry Pi and to the Google Coral TPU Edge device, shut down everything running on his Mac, and there was no interruption to the application whatsoever. It was completely seamless, self-forming, self-healing, auto-discovery, and obliviates the need for all of the sort of scaffolding you would normally have to spin up in order to manage that.
Yeah, all that part was clear. The part where I was falling down was he was showing this web page, and it seemed to me the web page was reflecting the state of the provider, which is why I thought that's where I got all turned around. I didn't realize that he was basically using the actor as an API router back into the provider. That's the part I missed. Right, because when you added your dog, that was state that was stored in the provider, correct?
When I added my dog, we're persisting all of our state in the Postgres database. So when we do things like query for, what dogs does this individual customer have, that request hits the HTTP server provider, gets forwarded to the Clinic API, which says, oh, this is a request pertaining to customers. And then that customer's actor actually executes the SQL query to get that.
Yeah, so the picture I had imagined was if you take that pink box that says server provider and you made it blue and you moved it to the left side, that was my image, right? You were coming into the provider and the provider was going into the actor and the actor was going into the provider. I didn't realize that there was, I don't want to say callback, but this, I just assumed that the HTTP server part was on the actor, which is where I was trying to get turned around. That's okay. It's just a detail.
It's certainly good feedback though for this architecture diagram, because you kind of have to chase it around. This went through a couple of different iterations, and I think going from left to right, or maybe like a mermaid style E diagram could illustrate that better too.
Yeah, whenever. So I think I'd be a good crash test dummy, because I'm probably like the least smart person on the call. So if I can get it, then probably anyone can get it. But yeah, if you need a crash test dummy, I'm happy to provide my services.
I'm going to argue with you over the least person on the call, Nikki, but that's neither here nor there. Everybody brings different perspective to this call, and very succinctly, everybody adds a ton of value. Like to your point, your just emerging familiarity with the space is an awesome opportunity for us to check how we explain things. And I really appreciate your desire to continually ask questions and help us to explain things better, because that's one of the biggest challenges that we have. And I know that may actually be a good segue if there are any more questions to what Brooks said. One of the things, Nikki, I think you were working on is bringing some different voices to the table and trying to help explain the material in a different way. Would you like to maybe share a little bit of some of the things that you've been working on and what you're thinking?
Yeah, actually, this is actually kind of a good point. So let me try and sort of give like the 30-second primer. So, I've been, as you guys know, I've been trying to learn this stuff, trying to orient myself to it, and kind of sort of, I have to kind of, the way my brain thinks, I have to see it from the top down, because I'm pretty good with details. I can understand details, but if I don't understand where the details sit in the overall structure, I get very discombobulated. So I've been thinking about this technology kind of sort of from that point of view. And so what I said to Liam last Friday actually was like, hey, I think there's some fundamental concepts that I think if you were to air them out, I think a lot of these discussions about lattice, actor, provider, all that stuff would just fall into place, or at least it would fall into place for me. So what I've done is I've started to work on a little bit of a video And if it's okay with you guys, I'd like to show it to you guys. I'd like to do it twice, okay? The first time, so where I am at this process is I've done all the animation, but I haven't done the voiceover. So I'd like to just play it without saying anything. It's literally 2 minutes. And then what I'd like to do is play it again and kind of sort of tell you what I think the content should be on the slides. And then if you guys could give me feedback, good, bad, or indifferent, I think that would be very fruitful for me, at least. So can I share my screen?
Yeah. You might even have permissions to do it already.
Okay, can you guys see my screen?
Yes, we can. We can see your whole screen, by the way.
That's okay. There's nothing on here. I don't have. Okay. I have nothing to hide. Okay, so you guys see this video, right?
Yep. And you said there was no audio on it, right?
Yeah. So I want to play it because I haven't done the audio. The audio.
Okay.
The way this software works is this is 2 minutes, but this is many, many hours of my life. So let's just go through it and tell me if the video visuals make sense. And then I'll walk through it again, and I will just tell you what I think needs to be on each screen. Okay. So it's going to be a little bit of an exercise, but let's see how this goes. You guys can see this, right?
Yep. Yeah. Looks great.
What do you guys think? Any thoughts?
Open floor, everybody.
My first thought is this is amazing. Did you draw all these things yourself?
I have nothing better to do with my life. No, this is as you can see, I've got a trial version of this stuff.
Okay.
So let me walk through it with a little bit of narration, okay? But I'm trying to tell a story. But the pictures have to stand without the narration. Now, obviously, images is half, but narration is the other half. But I'm hoping if I put them together, I get something good, right? So let me just quickly walk through this really fast, just the high level points. This is obviously the intro slide. Nothing special here. So here on this slide, what I want to talk about is what it is and why we think it's exciting. Okay, so this slide is what is it, which is the as I narrated, I'm only going to draw one person. So when I start talking about, let's talk about what Wasm is, and you'll just see the person, right? Then I'll start talking about, well, it's a standard. Then it'll show the browser with the books on it. The person walking up means it's still in process. And the globe with the play icon is that it's a ubiquitous technology that can run anywhere, any place, anytime. Okay. So this is obviously, the evolution of computers, right? So obviously you have the CPU, right? And the point I'm trying to draw out here is application management continues to be a pain in the rear, right? So let me let this one draw out. Okay, so basically, obviously you had the CPU evolved, right? You went from vacuum tubes to whatever billions of transistors. You went from, punch cards to SSDs, all that stuff. Interestingly enough, I actually looked this up. VMware was founded in 1998, if I recall correctly. It's just a point of information. So in the 1990s, you get virtualization. So now, you have the ability to run more stuff. But you still have to worry about configuring OS, and then finally, obviously in 2010s, actually Docker started it. Wait, actually I have to relook at the date, but the date of Docker is about 2010, something like that. Anyway, obviously you've got now you virtualize the OS, but application management is still a pain in the rear, right? So let this play. So then obviously here I'm talking about, well, CPU's gotten a lot better, infrastructure's gotten a lot better, but application management is still a pain, right? Okay. So I'm gonna let this play. So this is like the money slide, okay? This is where, like, if you're gonna grab someone's attention, if I lost them before, I've totally lost them now. This is like the money slide. So I'm gonna talk about, well, here's the idea behind Wasm, right? It runs in, in any browser runtime. It's a sandbox, secure. It uses a byte compatible file. You have a notion of a provider with a contract. Same notion in another browser runtime. You have the notion of a sandbox, which is secure, but this time you have the notion of an actor, and they're connected with the lattice. Okay, so I'm going to stop right here. I actually do have a technical question. Is there a notion of a contract for the actor? It's only for the provider.
The contract is between an actor and a provider.
But would you say it's more on the actor provider side or the actor side, or it's kind of they both have their own version of the contract?
So when you define a contract between an actor and a provider, you choose which messages an actor receives and which messages the provider receives.
So would it be more correct to put the contract in the middle here, like there?
Yes, I would probably put the contract in the middle there. Okay. The other thing is I don't want to diminish the slide here because it's just amazing. But if we use Wasm down at the bottom, and then on the same slide we're talking about actors, providers, and lattices, it may give people the impression that those things are part of the Wasm standard and not part of wasmCloud.
Okay, so should I change that to wasmCloud?
I think for clarity, it probably would be better that way, because
that's fine.
People already think Wasm on its own does too much. So yeah, having like Wasm and then wasmCloud on top.
Pancake it, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Stack of flapjacks.
Cake.
So put the contract in the middle and make this wasmCloud. Okay.
Brooks, you want to jump on in? You've had your arm up for a little bit here.
Sorry.
Oh, no, it's fine. I just threw it up right when you got to the slide and you took a pause. I was going to say the same point of feedback that Kevin was going to, or that Kevin said, just that this is the point in the presentation where it becomes wasmCloud specific. And so I think that same feedback of like wasmCloud on top of Wasm is perfect.
Okay. Okay.
Awesome.
So, and then obviously this is obviously the resilience and the failover, right? I don't have the timing on the final part, right? But you can obviously multi-cloud, multi-provider, green cloud goes kaput and it just reroutes, right? I think, and obviously the heterogeneous actors running on heterogeneous devices, right? I think this is fairly simple, but I think this is by the way, I know this is, I know to everyone on this call, this is obvious, right? But to the uninitiated, this is profound.
Mhm.
I can tell you, like in T. Rowe Price, people are contorting themselves in all kind of unnatural ways over DR. Okay, so even though for you guys this is incredibly obvious, this is if from the point of view of a CISO or a CIO or a CTO, this is profoundly important, right?
Yeah, I was going to say that like the visualization here with the things attached to the mesh is amazing on its own, but the animation of showing one device attempting to reach a provider and then finding a fallback path, that one animated illustration does more than I could do in a half-hour worth of PowerPoint slides.
Yeah.
So,
Nikki, I
loving
think it's. Oh, sorry, Kevin.
I'm good. I was just gushing.
Nikki, I think I would like you to say that on your, and you should actually write write a little bit of that around the automated resilience and just note those points. I mean, hearing your words now make this slide 1 + 1 is 100. It's great to hear that it's even better together.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead though. Back to the walk.
Yeah. So at this point, I mean, I think the rest of this slide is pretty obvious. This guy goes kaput. This guy takes over. Again, I didn't put the pause in here. I need to narrate this, and I need to time it, right? And then obviously, oops, sorry. Then this is just like, okay, we're still children. We believe this is the path forward. Come join us, right? But what I'm trying to get out of this meeting is like, from your point of view, does this visualize, and obviously I need to fix a slide with the wasmCloud and the contract and put it in the right place. Those are all simple things to fix. But from a visualization point of view, is this the story that you guys want? Because this is the story that I'm receiving now. That may or may not be the story that you guys want.
Look, Nikki, I think the bigger point when we met on this one-on-one that I wanted to really encourage was your point of view here is what matters, right? And you and the sort of how you perceive this elephant of our distributed FAS is really hearing it played back in your own words is going to connect with a whole different population of personas that share your worldview and that you're going to speak to directly. So I think it's really not important what we think on the call, and I also still love it. And I think generally, I think it's great. What I would suggest as a next step is I have worked with this community now for a couple of years, and it was amazing when we were preparing like the keynotes for KubeCon EU and some like the big WebAssembly stuff was that the people on this call helped me write those. So what I did is I think I shared a couple of those docs with you. Take if you have 12 slides here that get drawn, take 12 slides and put them in a Google Doc and then start typing your script under it and then invite folks here if you want to help really dial in that language so we get it really precise and crisp. I was blown away. Justin gave all kinds of great feedback on, even grammar and stuff like that on some of my talks in the sort of power of the community to bring these together.
Yeah, actually, Liam, I don't think you actually sent that stuff over.
I'll bump it right now if I didn't. My apologies. Jordan?
It's okay.
Yeah, did I fix my mic? Can you hear me? Cool. Nikki, the one thing I will say, the only recommendation I have is, you said at some point, this is really clear to everyone on this call. I will have you know, I've been riding this train for almost a year and a half now. I only last week grasped the power the lattice is going to involve. So I would say, like, even though, I mean, my introduction to WebAssembly was wasmCloud, so I would say that the assumption that we all understand it greatly, I would take that, because I even learned something just now from yours that there are some of us on here that are still riding and it's still a bucking bronco, if you will. So just wanted to give that feedback.
Yeah, I mean, and that was the other thing I wanted to ask, like, not the people that work on wasmCloud directly. I was just wondering if anyone else in the audience got something out of that presentation that they hadn't realized or hadn't quite grokked, or maybe presented the same thing, but in a different way that they had never thought about? Okay. I mean, I guess the final comment is, again, I think the key to this is I really want this to be less than 5 minutes. I think if it's 5 minutes, it's too long. With the animation that I have right now, that was like a little over 2 minutes. I don't think I can narrate it in the time that it's there. I think it's gonna balloon to, I'm trying to get it to like 3 or 4 minutes is my target. But this, you know, what I'm looking for is like anyone who's got a technology background at some level, right, can take 3 or 4 minutes out of their life and watch this and be able to start having a meaningful conversation about what this is and isn't, right? Because I think a lot of times, you know, and what I said to Liam last week is that, you know, whenever you hear a new technology, it's all this mumbo jumbo, and everyone says the same mumbo jumbo. And then, you know, you just hear it and you become numb to it, right? It's another thing to you know, to not use big complex words and not use the same, you know, mumbo jumbo, but just show very simply, okay, this is why it's different. You've got a sandbox. The sandbox is protected memory, blah, 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 blah. And you know, very simple English, right? Not, oh, it's a homogeneous array of memory, nothing like that. You know, it's, you know, and using simple terminology that you're, you know, you're kind of sort of targeting like maybe a sophomore in college in computer science or something like that. And they should be able to get several things out of this. That's the target I'm shooting for.
That's great, Nikki. I'm excited to see where it evolves to over the next couple weeks as you dial this in and get this going. Any other questions for Nikki or feedback on this? And Nikki, I would say, you know, if you want to pull together the Google Doc and get feedback, or as you want to collect more feedback, just feel free to engage folks directly in Slack too. You know, start your own threads. You know, just, drop stuff in general. I think that's a good way to get feedback. We do have a number of users, around, I don't know, 50 or so, that can't make the meetings, but that do follow up on YouTube and other places. So I think you'll get some good follow-up and engagement there. Just a final call. Any other questions for Nikki on this one? Okay, great job, Nikki. I'm super impressed, and I really appreciate all the hard work you're putting in on that. It's amazing. It's not something that we called out and that we asked for. It's an area that you just saw an opportunity, and you're just filling it. So that's amazing. And I think, Brooks, you've got a community call-out for today. Is that right?
I do. I have 2 community callouts, so I'll do you one better.
Even better.
Let's see. Just gotta get back to it. Alrighty, so 2 community callouts this week. Just good first issues across our couple of repositories. We found an issue over the last week. I guess it was exactly in the last week, 6 days ago. Where when you stop a capability provider, what happens in the wasmCloud host is we send the provider a message to shut down. It's automatically listening for that message because of Wasm bus RPC. So when it gets the shutdown message, it says, okay, like I'll clear up all of my resources and then close my NATS connection, and then I'll go away. Now, you know, providers are automatically listening for this, and you know, most of the capability providers that we've that have been written are like the first party ones. But you know, in the case where cleaning up resources can take a little bit longer than 2 seconds, I think is how long we give providers to clean up. The runtime host automatically will try to like kill -9 the capability provider, and this is just to make sure that we don't have running providers that we don't have control over. But if and the way that it does this is by you know, essentially shelling out to the kill binary. If that binary isn't installed, then we can't actually kill the provider in that way. So what we really want, you know, there's some additional design work to do here to give better granular control over executables. But what we really want here is when we try to run this command, we don't want the Elixir process to fail to do this, because it'll restart and then it'll start another instance of the provider, which is like a great feature of Elixir. One of the reasons why we're using it is because of its reliability, but here we don't want the crash and burn to trigger starting another provider. So this good first issue is just around taking this command and making sure that we kind of try catch it. And if it fails, then we should issue a warning log, because it doesn't necessarily mean that the provider failed to stop. It could just be taking a little bit long. But we certainly don't want the process to fail to exit and then restart. So this really only affects a couple of really unique scenarios. If you start a host on a machine that doesn't have the kill binary installed, this happens, and that usually is like if you're on like a scratch Docker image or something really slimmed down. So that led to us essentially finding this. So that's the first one. It's in our OTP runtime, so awesome. If anybody wants to start playing around with that, feel free to reach out in the help channel. And then also another thing about our GitHub actions, we want to, we've been publishing new versions of our capability providers over the last few weeks. We kind of do this all the time. And what we want to be able to do is come to the capability providers repo and see essentially at a bird's eye view, if I want to start the newest HTTP server, what's the OCI reference for that? And this isn't too difficult to find, right? If we go to our tags, we can scroll down, I guess, for example, like HTTP client, we should be using the 0.39 version. But what would really be awesome, I know that shields.io has like a configurable API for making like the badges that we have on wasmCloud. But at the very least, the action that we use to create a GitHub release, we could list the OCI reference there. So if anybody has some experience with GitHub Actions and wants to take a stab at this is a great place to contribute to something that's really going to have a huge impact on the community, because it'll be so much easier to find the latest version of these capability providers. So that is the community call out for this week. We've got one on the capability provider side, which would be some good old fashioned YAML editing if you love doing that, and then one on the OTP, the Elixir side. Anybody have any questions while we're on the call? If you heard it and you're super interested in taking one of them, if there's any questions, feel free to ask them now.
Yeah,
Nikki.
I don't have. I'm going to be doing something else, but I'm just curious. If you do a kill-9 on your process, is anything bad going to happen?
As far as the capability, it's a kill-9 on the capability provider. So, really the biggest bad thing that could happen is the provider is legitimately trying to clean up its resources, flush message queues, finish writing files, and it just takes a little bit longer than 2 seconds. That process gets interrupted. But it has 2.3 seconds to respond and clean some things up. That's configurable. You can make that longer. So if you know that you have providers running that need to make sure that they have time to flush, then yeah, that is what that would be a way to adjust that.
Because when you do a -9, you're actually telling the operating system to pull the rug out from underneath the process, right? So depending upon what it's doing, again, it's more about like what it's doing. Like if you guys are comfortable that pulling the rug out is okay, then that's great. But the -9 is you're going to the operating system itself and say goodbye. Yeah.
Our intent here is that this is the point where we've told the provider to clean up, and this happens after the capability provider responds saying, hey, I'm done with doing my cleanup, or until a timeout. So if you configure that to be longer, then it's not like it'll take 60 seconds every time. But like Kevin is starting to kind of say in chat, we're looking at a better way of interacting with these processes instead of just spawning with Erlang, like spawning a port and then kill-9ing it when it's time to die. That would give us a way to do things like say shut down, check in with the process, ask how it's doing, things like that. But this is mainly intended to prevent capability providers from just continuing to run in the background after they should have cleaned up.
Hey, Brooks, I have a quick question. So the GitHub action one, right? It can be done in a bunch of ways. But what I'm thinking is utilizing something like webhooks is a way to do it. But it also offers us a really unique chance to dog food wasmCloud. Is there any interest in like a bigger collective to have like a running wasmCloud long term that we can do things like push web? I mean, even if it's like Raspberry Pis sitting on all of our desks and someone holds the keys and can kick us out or whatever. Something that we can just point to and be like, look, the community dog foods this and we have a playground, ? I don't need an answer. That's just something I'm bringing up.
So like a community lattice?
Like a community lattice, yeah.
Gears are turning.
That's actually
I volunteer. I volunteer as tribute.
If my camera was working, you could see me stroking my beard like a supervillain.
Well, one of the things we're working on at Cosmonic as a fun project is doing wasmCloud on these LCD displays. So what I want to do is be able to like gift somebody IRL and like have it pop up on their board. But there's all kinds of hijinks that I think that we could have with the distributed with a community lattice. So that's a really solid idea, Jordan. And probably something we need to think about controlling too, because I think I have this little law that anything free will be abused at some point, just from my years monitoring networks and stuff like that. Phenomenal sidebar discussion. We still have a couple other things to cover today. If I could just do a couple quick announcements here. The first is just a call out about the let's see, a few upcoming deadlines and events. Let me share the wasmCloud community calendar, which should already be linked in Slack for you. But we've got a couple of events. Tomorrow we have the Wasm Time bi-weekly meeting, as well as our regularly scheduled bi-weekly machine learning subgroup. That is, there's also a channel on Slack if you haven't seen it yet. And I do another call out that the KubeCon EU Wasm Day CFP is approaching here. So it's still open until May 16th. I'm sorry, the event is on May 16th, but it's still open until the 28th. We would love to get some more talks. So any ideas you have, wasmCloud related or not, we'd love to get you in consideration for a speaking slot. And then I'd also call out that there's still plenty of time to get registered for Red Badger's We Love Wasm event on We Love Tech, which is March the 2nd at 6:30 GMT. So around 1:30 or 2:30 here. I'm confused on the actual time, but that's coming up as well. So please feel free to get registered for those. I'll drop links for those out into our Slack. Any question or any other community events that anyone would like to share? Stuart, is there anything that you need or retweets? Can we all maybe try to retweet your event? Is there anything we can do to help support you on the event you're putting on?
I don't know really. I mean, anybody that wants to register is more than welcome to come. Taylor and Brooks are doing a talk very kindly, which is great, and there's also a talk from Single Store about how they're extending their data, bringing their processing closer to data, which is great. Yeah, I mean, just come along virtually, or if you're in London in person, it'd be great to see you. But yeah, feel free to tweet it, whatever you want to do. I'll put a link in the channel as well. Thanks.
Awesome. Okay. So quickly, just turning to open floor. I'm not sure, Kevin, are there any architectural decisions, or I think Steve, are you on today? Anything coming up on the wasmCloud side that we would want to chat about?
Sure. There's some stuff that isn't merged yet that once it does merge, we'll get some documentation and some samples and so on. But the short version of it is that wasmCloud is going to support a decentralized configuration service, so that when you start a wasmCloud host, it will ask the config service for the configuration that applies to that host. And so that host will then get a list of actors to auto start and capability providers to auto start. And it will also receive registry credentials so that it can then be told how to pull from private or secure OCI and bindle registries. So there's quite a bit of potential for being able to use that in a bunch of different scenarios. But yeah, that should add some power and flexibility to wasmCloud deployment scenarios. So yeah, we'll probably have something we can show, poke around with next week.
Kevin, that's super exciting from perspective of what that's going to enable us to be able to do as far as bootstrapping things and getting applications to scale better. That'll be incredible. Jennifer, anything on your end? I know you've been working away on a couple of features.
Sorry, no, I've actually been busy with work. I haven't actually worked on anything to do with wasmCloud. So.
Okay, super. All right, great. Well, open floor, just around the community. Anybody have any topics they wanted to raise? All right. Well, I think this was an amazing meeting, and Brooks, that demo today was just phenomenal. I mean, I know you just like wing these sometimes, but they always just look so amazing. I think we pulled that one out and put that one up as a special, like, individually playable. It was just very well done. And Nikki, your video's coming along awesome. I can't wait to see where it goes. And it's so great just to have some different voices in the community show up and share their perspective, because I think it really does help to make the community a better place. If there's nothing else, I'll go and stop recording, and we can hang out as usual. But happy wasmCloud Wednesday, folks. See you next week.